message. So the next thing which we need to consider while we are planning for the EMS management system or health and safety management system, we need to consider the context of organization and our activities, products and services which we are going to cover in EMS or health and safety management system. What we need to do is significant aspect and impact studies. In case of our health and safety, it will be the identification of hazards, right? And then compliance obligation. We discussed already yesterday that we need to identify the legal requirements which are applicable to our scope of work, and then we need to write the actions which are applicable to us. Risk and opportunities. What are the risks associated to our company and what are the opportunities which are possible? For example, when we say risk or when we say SWOT analysis, when we are going to do this activity, so opportunities are the positive things which are possible. Risk are the threats, or you can say the weak things which are possibly there is a possibility that they are going to impact in a negative way. Then on the basis of these things, we are going to plan our objectives. So 6.1 objectives we already discussed yesterday. Now we need to do is environmental aspect impact. Environmental aspect impact is the clause 6.1.2, or in health and safety, occupational health and safety 45,000 standard, the same clause is there. The purpose of aspect impact, that there are two parts of aspect impact, right? When we are doing, I hope many of you have already done this activity within your companies as well. Those who are certified on EMS, or even if you are certified on 45,000, you have done the risk assessment. Even for the quality, for the food safety, you have to do the risk assessment. So this is basically the risk assessment of environment. So what we need to do in safety, we were identifying the hazards, and in environment we are identifying the aspects. So what are the aspects we need to cover? We need to see our first thing, scope. Okay, in our scope, what are the activities going on? For example, starting from raw material input, from where the truck of any supplier is coming, up to the dispatch activity or up to the end of the product. And then what are the products which you are going to prepare there, and what are the services? If you have any services, you are providing any services, so in this case you will be considering your services. So whatever activities are going to be included in our scope, we will be considering their aspect. We will be considering them as an aspect. And the control, again, there will be in next slide, we will discuss that if this activity or product or services is possibility, there is a possibility to control, or there is a possibility to influence. Remember, boundary of control and boundary of influence. So we need to see that how much control can we apply and how much influence can we do for them to minimize this risk of this aspect. So after that, we need to see the impact. Significance defined by using the established criteria. For example, what are the rating you have defined? So what will be the adverse impact? What will be the negative impact? What could be the positive impact? Most of the time in safety, we consider only the negative impact. For example, hand injury, for example, head injury, for example, respiratory problems. But when we talk about environment, we need to see maybe some of our activities can have the positive impact on the environment. So we need to consider those positive impact as well. So once we are doing this activity, if there is any change, it will be coming here under the scope of control and influence. How we are going to do this activity? Activities, for example, when we take the activities, we need to take the normal activities and abnormal activities. What do you mean by abnormal activities? For example, when the operation is going on of a machine or a boiler or a generator in a normal condition, we will be identifying the aspects. Similarly, if the machine has some problem of maintenance, for example, if the boiler is not working well, if the generator is producing a lot of noise or a lot of pollution, so in this case it will become abnormal condition, and we need to identify the aspects when we are having the normal condition and abnormal condition. And similarly, in case of emergency situation, so for example, if the gas is going to be leak, which can impact the environment, for example, too much pollution, if your wastewater treatment plant is out of order. Now this will be an environmental emergency, right? Because you are going to produce the waste which is untreated, and it is going directly to the your drain channels. So this will be considered as emergency situation. For example, your one of the gas which is being used in the company, for example, is steam, for example, uh, your boiler. So if they are going to become out of order, or they have a severe problem due to which they are producing a lot of pollution in the air, or S2S gas or ammonia gas, which is used for the freezing purpose, it is going to be leak within the company. So this will also be considered as a emergency situation. So environmental emergencies, for example, if there is a spill which is going on, you are dealing with the chemicals, or you are dealing with the hazardous substances, and if there is a large spill, or there is a tank is going to have over spill and it is going to into the ground. So these are all our emergency situations. So when we are doing the aspect and impact studies, we need to consider the activities and the processes, or if we have the services for the normal condition, and for the abnormal condition, and for the emergency situation. So then we can, if we are going to identify all these things and aspect, then we can have a impact on them, and we can apply the good controls. So this is very necessary to have aspect and impact with normal, abnormal, and emergency situation. So once we have aspects available, then we need to communicate. It is not the, not for the documentation purpose only. We need to have this communication. If it is done for the, it is being done for the departments, we need to share this study with the department, so they can see that what are the significant aspects for them. Now sometimes the question comes that up to how much depth we have to go when we are identifying the hazards, or when we are identifying the aspect, because everything can have the aspect. So the answer which standard gives us is the simple answer, that we need to go for the significant aspect, those aspects which can have the significant impact on the environment. If it is due to the activity, if it is due to your product process, or if it is due to your any of the service provider. So for example, if you are working in an oil and gas company, or you are working in a lubricant company, and you are delivering the diesel from one place to another place, or you are delivering the chemical from one place to another place, and in between, if the bowser or the tanker which you are going to use for the transportation purpose, it is going to be overspill. So this will be considering as our environmental emergency. What will be our protocols? We need to define these things. So that's why only for the purpose of study, it's not necessary. We need to communicate this. And when we say significant aspect, which means the risk and opportunity, as I told you, adverse impact, which means threat, and beneficial impact, which means the positive thing, the opportunities which are necessary. And this requirement from the standard is the necessary. I mean, you have to document this information. You cannot say that, yes, we know about the significant aspects of our companies and we have applied all the controls, so you can verify it. No, only verbal discussion is not enough for this activity, or similarly for the risk assessment. You need to do the documentation. You need to define the things. You need to do this in the form of format, or in the form of chart, whatever you are going to use, but it should be documented in any of the form. Any question?
What would be the name of this document?
Environmental aspect impact studies.
We need to make document like we need to establish any procedure or what?
Yeah, yes. You will be
Procedure for identification of evaluation of environmental aspects.
Yes, environmental aspect and impacts, or in short form EIA.
Right? Okay. Thank you.
Similarly, you will also be doing the same thing for the risk assessment of health and safety. Now we will be doing the exercise for aspect, impact, and risk assessment, so you will get better idea that how the forms will be looking like. You will be developing the form now. So aspects, what are the environmental aspects? Elements of an organization, how the standard define aspect. Elements of an organization, activities or products or service that interact or can interact the environment. If it is directly or if it is indirectly. Directly, which means that you are producing the products. Indirectly, which means that your core activity is to produce the product, but at the same time you are also producing the waste. You are producing the byproduct. You are producing the hazardous waste. You are producing the non-hazardous waste. So these all are our aspects. The impact is what will be the impact on the environment due to this activity. If it will be a positive impact, if it will be a negative impact, it will be, the impact will be on locally, the impact will be within the department, the impact will be within the organization, the impact will be within the city, or it will be a global impact. So environmental impact is change to environment, whether adverse or beneficial, wholly or partially, resulting from an organizational aspect. So whatever the requirements which we are going to have during the aspects, so the impact, if it is starting from a very small level impact up to the global level impact, we need to identify. So if we have a good identification of aspect, we can have the good identification of impact as well. So once you know the aspect, then you will be working on these things and you will be identifying the impact as well. Yes, Ali.
What is there an example for positive impact?
Yes, positive impact. For example, you are going to release some gases which are good for example, oxygen. You are going to release during some of your process, so it is going to have positive impact. You are going to produce the wastewater, and you have the wastewater treatment plant available. This treated water is used for the gardening purpose. This treated water is going to use for car washing or some other purposes within the company. So you are using this as a positive impact. So the activity itself is the activity is producing some aspect, but when you are going to apply the control, then this impact will become our positive impact, right? So I have seen in some companies, for example, when I was working in Unilever, we at that time 15 years ago, there was a wastewater treatment plant. So what they have done with the wastewater treatment plant, it was, I think the first treatment plant in Pakistan at that time. So what they have done with the treatment plant, they have kept a small aquarium, and that treatment plant water is going to be used in in that aquarium, which shows that my water which I'm going to produce, because it is a requirement of my process that I have to discard the water. But before discarding, as an environmental responsible company, we are treating this water that it is not going to have negative impact on our marine life or on our seas. So that's why they put the same water. It was connected live with the treated water which was going outside in the drain, and this aquarium was working very fine with the fishes and all these things. And again, after some time, we make the system that this treated water is going to use for the gardening purpose, for the watering the plant, for the washing purpose. For example, if you are washing outdoors, you have to use this water. If you are using this water for the production department, so you can use this treated water. So these are the positive impacts, right? Or similarly, when you say that we have made our CSR activities, the corporate social responsibility, we are going to grow 100 trees, okay, because we are using the trees in our many of the activities. For example, we are using the papers, we are using the wood in our company. So the ultimate is the effect on the environment is negative, but how we are going to make our responsibility, that we have selected the area in the forest where we are going to put, for example, we are going to plant 500 trees, we are going to plant 1000 plants, like that. So this will be our positive contribution. Yes,
But,
Bess.
Mr. Anas, please.
Yes.
Positive aspects, it's called safety opportunities, or
Yes,
no?
yes. Positive aspects are opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Zagzoo.
Assalamu alaikum. Now,
Alaikum
what if we have positive and negative at the same time? Like, let's say, for example, we plant trees. Now, in warehouses, especially for food item warehouse, we try to save the food item from insect and small insect. Now, if we plant tree, the tree is negative impact for the environment, for oxygen, and for it's known for a negative plant, positive. I mean positive.
The tree has positive impact on environment, but it has negative impact on the food, right?
But it could be not directly, because the insect will live.
You need to have the pest management system available if you are going to grow the tree, and no need to grow the tree very close to your food products. You will be growing the trees, along your boundaries, right?
Yes.
So it is not necessary that it should be very close. It can impact on the food safety. In this case, if it can impact on the food safety, definitely you need to have a good system of pest management. You need to use the fertilizers that cannot create any of the pest or pesticides which can impact on your food.
Okay.
This is how you can control. That's why it is written as partially or wholly, right? Maybe sometime you will have the positive impact, and sometime you will have negative impact. Sometime you will have both. For example, when they are working in Tahliya, so in SWCC in Tahliya, I don't know what is the efficiency of their, how much water is intake and how much water when they are going to produce. Out of 100 liter, what about moist, while, what do you think? If we have 100 liter of water and we are, making the treatment of it into desalination plant, how much the water we are going to have as a clean water?
Desalination. You mean desalination
Yeah,
unit, Mr.
desalination.
Anas?
Exactly, exactly.
For example, if we from the intake, if you use 1,000 liter as seawater, we will produce 400 as drinking water, and 600 will return
To the
to the
sea.
sea.
Yes. So we can see now, for example, this desalination plant has the positive impact and also has the negative, because the water which is going to be discarded, it will have very high content of salts, right? Similarly, the RO plant we have in our companies, normal companies, they have, most of the companies, food manufacturing or other companies, they have RO plant, they have the boilers available. So at the same time, we are going to use the RO plant for treating our water, but the backflush water of RO plant, it is very high TDS, right? It has very too much, the contents are negative. So at the same time, we are using the water for the positive purpose, and we are also generating the water for the which can have the negative impact. So that's why we need to have the wastewater treatment plant available, or the limits are being defined. So yeah, the limits are being defined by the environmental authorities. So whenever you are going to take out of the water from your company, it should manage. Remember when we were discussing day before yesterday, that environmental pollution you cannot stop, and that's why the countries, the states, the companies, they have the parameters available that you need to control them. You cannot stop them. The only thing when you can stop them is to close the system. If you close the system, then you have to close the industry. So you will be producing the pollution, you will always have the impact of your activities, but we need to see that how we are going to control this impact, and that's why we are going to do this study of environmental aspect and impact, right? Okay, environmental aspect can cause an environmental impact. A significant aspect is one that has one or more than one significant impact. So it might be possible that we have, due to the environmental aspect, we can have one impact or more than one impact are also possible. Significant environmental aspects are determined by the organization applying one or more criteria. When we are going to put the numbers, so on the basis of our calculation, then we can say that this is the significant aspect or no. So when we will be doing the exercises, we will be using some formula as well. Quickly, you can see that how our activities are producing. For example, these are all our activities. We have some raw material, for example, in the form of natural gas. We are using the energies as well, and the output is our product or services. So during all this activity or during all this process, we are having emission to air, energy is emitted, generation of waste, use of space, release to land, release to water, and then when it goes to the customer, they are using it and they are disposing of. If they are disposing of in an environmental friendly manner, it's okay. If they are not disposing of them in an environmentally friendly manner, then we cannot force it. So this is a simple thing which from where you can get the idea that how our activities, they are producing the impacts. And this, you can see that this is our boundary of control and boundary of impact. So you can see that these all situations which are covering within our company, right? These are the boundary of control. But when it goes out, for example, what raw material is coming, what natural resources are coming, most of the time these are not under our control from where we are getting these things, right? So in this case, we can influence our supplier that you should provide us, you should be an environmental responsible company as well, but we cannot force them. So similarly, when you have the consumer or you have the customer, you don't know how he is going to use your product. Maybe he is using the drinking water for the washing purpose. He is using the drinking water for the bathing purpose. So you cannot force them. Now you cannot you cannot force them that, oh no, this is a drinking water, so you should use it for the drinking purpose only. He will say, I have fasting, I have Siam, so I can use it for the bathing purpose. So once it reaches to the supplier or your customer, then you can only influence them by writing something on the label, by making the advertisement, by giving them the awareness through social media. But at the end of the day, you cannot control them. You can control these activities. You can minimize the energy consumption within your company. You can have good maintenance plan. You can have good energy conservation controls. You can have efficiency of your process, which can avoid the emissions to air. The emissions to air, you can have a controlled maintenance program, which will always make sure that the emissions which are coming out from your processes, they are being controlled. Similarly, when you are releasing the water to the outside of the company, you might install, if there are any hazardous waste which is coming out in the form of liquid, you can install wastewater treatment plant. You can have some sludge tanks which you are going to use. You can use the different techniques for cleaning of this water, and then you will take this water out of the company. So these things which you can do internally within your company, these are our boundary of control. And those things which are out of your control, these can be under our boundary of influence, right? Yes, any question? Yes, Ali.
I have a
Nothing.
question. No.
Okay. So Abdurrahman,
Yes.
any question, or you are
Yes.
still thinking?
Now you said that we cannot, of course, we cannot force customer how to use drinking water. Like let's say, if we produce the water, we cannot force them how to use water for drinking purpose or for bath purpose. But
But the government can force them, right?
we can write. We can, like, let's say.
That's why I'm saying it is the boundary of influence. You can write on your label. You can make them aware. You can put the advertisement. You can put on the social media, right? For example, have you seen when you are going towards highway or when you are going towards roads, you will find the energy conservation boards from the government, the authorities use electricity, minimum use electricity.
Yes.
If you go towards NWC company, National Water Company, you will find many boards outside of their company that you should use the water in a limited way. So these are our boundary of influence. What they are doing, the activities. If you see the wrapper of any ice cream, or if you see the wrapper of any food product, you will find one dustbin, and the image is like you put this garbage in the dustbin. So this is our boundary of control. We are going to give them the awareness that once you are going to finish your product, please put them in the dustbin. So it will go to the Baldia, and Baldia will make sort out, and those materials which are recycled, they can be recycled. If you see the plastic companies, those companies who are producing the plastic products, they are now writing that 100% recyclable material, right? Or they make the sign of recyclable. So these are all our boundaries of influence. It is only the awareness which the companies can provide. They cannot force the customer, or they cannot force the consumer how to do, right? If you see in many countries, there is the system that if you are going to put the bottles, the plastic into machine, they are going to give you the money, right? So all recyclable bottles, they are collecting from their home or from the streets, whatever, and they are going to put them into machine. This machine makes them in the form of chips, and they are getting the dollars or whatever the currency
In Japan.
in Japan, and even in Turkey, even it's very common. Everywhere you will find these kind of machines. So now you can see the aspect. When we are considering the aspect, what we need to consider. Okay, those aspects which are having legal requirements, which are having the concern with the interested parties, they can be identified as significant aspect, right? Because legal means that, khalas, if you are not going to follow this, it will be a penalty. It can cause the trouble for the company. And definitely interested parties, because interested parties are our customers, are our employees, are our top management. So if we are not going to have the concern of interested parties when we are identifying the aspects, so which means that this can have a adverse impact on our activities. And when the aspect could be the significant, it depends on the type of aspect. For example, if the material which is being out is a recyclable material, or it is a consumable material, you can use it again, reusable material, then it will not be a significant aspect. Similarly, the size, how much you are going to take out. For example, the more waste you are going to generate, which means the more adverse will be the impact. And the frequency. For example, you are producing the pollution, 5 minutes in one process, and at the same time you are producing the pollution for 5 hours in one shift. So definitely, the more time or the more frequently this activity is going to be performed, or many people are going to be perform the same activity, then it will have more impact, right? So when we are going to identify the impact, again we need to see that how much will be the impact, if this will impact within the company, if this will impact within the city, if this will impact internationally or the globally. And then the severity, how much severe will be the impact. For example, if you are going to produce the water which is out of specs, so what will be the impact? Sometimes we have seen in Riyadh, in Jeddah, there are treatment plants which are available, they are connected to the industrial areas. So if the companies are required to maintain the parameter, even if in case if they are not going to meet the parameters, it will go to the treatment plant. And this treatment plant and the Baldia or the authorities having this treatment plant, for example, Mudan, I think, they are going to charge you for the pollution you are going to take out. For example, they are going to charge you per gallon. They have the flow meter available outside of your drainage system. So you are getting the bill, monthly bill for this, because they said that since you are producing a lot of pollution, so whatever pollution you are going to produce, it will go to the treatment plant, and it will be a cost, right? The cost of the treatment. So like you are consuming the electricity, you are consuming some other utilities. So since you are taking out this hazardous waste from your company, so you have to pay this amount of bill on monthly basis. I have seen that in Jeddah and even in Riyadh industrial area, they are getting this as a in the form of bill, that they are going to calculate in whole month how much gallons you have taken out, and they are going to give them the bill on the basis of these things. So how much will be the scale, how much will be the severity, how much time it is going to be have, and how much exposure. For example, a company, why we have the cement companies outside of the cities, right? The reason is that because they are having, if you are more exposed to the people, if you are more exposed to the environment, which means that more adverse impact, the impact will be very dangerous on the people, on the flora fauna, on the locality near to the surrounding. So that's why those companies which are having adverse impact, they are always be established outside the cities, so they can have the less impact on the environment. But ultimately, the pollution they are going to have, the gases which are going out of their company, they are going to have adverse impact on the environment as well. But our focus also is like human, our focus is also like flora and fauna, so we need to consider this scenario as well. Yes, Abdurrahman.
Yes. Now there are sometimes some countries, what they do is they shut down the electricity of a whole city, if it's a small city, for 1 hour or for 30 minutes, and they say this is for saving
Yes.
electricity. Is it possible for a warehouse or a factory to shut down? At least
No,
they
it's
shut
not
down.
the case like you are saying. It is not the case. The companies and on the state level, they are doing this activity for the residential area, right? Those which are continuous process, they cannot be stopped like that. So what they are doing, I've seen in many, even here in many companies, they have the system that the head office area, they are going to have they have the UPS system available. So the only your laptop or your computer is going to have connected with the socket. Otherwise, they are going to close the lights for 30 minutes, for 45 minutes, and they say that it is our rest time, or you can say this is our consumption of energy. So at that time, if you want to work, you have the sunlight available. They have the walls of their offices are with the glass, so they can remove the curtain and they can have sunlight available. Very good, like from 12 to 1 or 1 to 2. So this is one of the practices which you can adopt within your company, within your office area. But when you are dealing with like warehouse or chillers, or you have the continuous plant available, in this cases, this formula cannot be applied until unless you have the backup operations available, because you need to focus on the product. You have to save your product as well. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So when we are going to apply the controls, we need to do three types of, any of these three option we need to apply for the control. For example, maybe we will do the monitoring, or we will apply the control and working on the emergency preparedness and response. If this control become to have too much adverse impact, in this case we will be applying the emergency preparedness response. And if the impact is too much and you cannot do right now, then you will be preparing the objectives. So if it is possible, if it is already controlled, you will be working on monitoring and measurement. You will be monitoring, because if it might be possible that if it is not being monitored, this can become out of the control, right? Then if it is not possible to have the monitoring, you need to apply the control at the same time. So if the control, it is under your limit, if the resources are available for the control, so you can apply the control directly. And if the control required some resources, it required decision making, then it means that you can apply the objective. For example, I'll give you one example. Few years ago, I went for one of the company audit, right? It was a very good company, multinational company, new company. It was a newly developed. We did the audit for ISO 14000 environment. And during the stage 1 audit, we identify that they have the pollutant which are going out of the company, and they don't have the system for the treatment. So what we did, we give them the finding that you need to see that what are your pollutants which are going out of the company, and you need to apply the controls. So it's okay. After 2 months or 3 months, I think we went for the stage 2 audit, which was the main audit where we need to take the decision of pass or fail. So what they have done, we discuss with them, okay, what is your plan now, what you have done? They said that it will be, we have already working on the installation of effluent treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant, but it will take minimum 8 months to be fully installation and energized. So in this case, as an auditor, what should I do? What will be you doing if you are doing this audit and the company say that our treatment plant will take 8 months?
They
What
make
will
it
be
as an environmental objective like this.
exactly?
Make
They took it
their
as.
officer.
So what to do during this 8 months? What will happen? They are not meeting the legal requirements. You are going to fail them or no?
We have monitor.
You have to. They have proved that they are.
They have proved, but
on it.
it's a legal requirement to follow the environmental parameters.
You can make an NCR, for example, and the deadline is
8
at
months.
the end of.
By 8 months, do whatever you want, right?
Yes, you cover yourself if you make an NCR. No.
No, I can cover myself, but I'm thinking that what will be the impact on the legal body if they will come and they will check? If they are not meeting the parameters which are required by the legal body, then what will happen? So
غرامة.
Garama, they will
Fines.
Garama, yes,
He will give fines.
yes, they will give
Fines.
fine.
No,
So
Mr. Anas, if you have already
where is the
make a
integrity of your audit? You told that
Mr.
in the audit you are going to check the legal and other requirements. Then
We can put in the place of risk control.
sorry.
We can put in the list of risk controls.
Okay, this will be a control, like we are talking about environmental aspect impact now. So this will be one of the control, but I'm asking for the time which is needed for the control. Definitely, if you are mashallah all professional, you should also understand that you understand clearly that installation of wastewater treatment plant is not a 15 days job, or it's not a 1 month job. So in this case, we told them, okay, we are not going to accept this argument from you that it will take 8 months. It's okay that you have make the feasibility and it is being approved by the top management and the budget has been allotted. But during this time of your transition phase, you need to have some tanks available where you are going to collect this treated water, this untreated water, and this untreated water will go to the supplier, okay, to one of the vendor who
third
is
party.
going to take it to the wastewater treatment plant, I mean, which is installed by the
Right.
Baldia or some the city authorities. So,
Mm.
okay, continue your activity. We are not going to fail you in the audit, but you have to apply the control as well. Otherwise, this requirement, see, standard does not ask you anywhere that you have to install the treatment plant. Standard asks you, you need to control your aspects. You need to control your aspect. You need to control your aspect. How you need to control your aspect? You have to define by yourself. We have seen many companies here also, those who are not in the industrial area, they have the tanks available. They call it septic tanks. So whatever the treated water, the untreated water, the hazardous water, which is going to take out from their processes, it is going to store in this in these tanks. And once the tank is going to be filled, they are going to call the supplier who is going to take out of all the water, and they are going to put it in an environmental friendly manner, and they are going to give you the certificate that we are authorized supplier or the service provider for environmental services, right? So this could be one of the control. Simple. Don't force the companies to go for the treatment water, otherwise they will change the certification body. Or if you as a internal auditor, you will ask them to install the treatment plant, so they will say it's better to change our internal auditor rather than to change our process. So always discuss the issues which are acceptable. We call it reasonable, practicable. Reasonable, practicable. Don't go for the rocket science. Okay, guys. So this is another thing. We can see it very quickly. Our life cycle. As we told you that during the environmental audit, you have to focus on the life cycle assessment. You should know from where your product is going to start and where it is going to be discarded. So these are the certain steps. For example, design and development stage, then acquisition of raw material, then manufacturing and warehouse, maintenance and infrastructure, then your environmental performance of your service providers or the contractors who are working within the company or working on behalf of the company, then how you are going to transport it, how the delivery and the packaging activities are going on, how you are going to transport it, and then where it is going to be used. It is going to be stored, it is going to be stored in the distributor warehouse, or it is going to be stored at your facility. What are the controls there? And then the waste management. Finally, when the user or the consumer is going to be used, what is the end of this product? If your product which is being used, it is good for human consumer consumption, or the wrapper or the packaging which is being used, is it possible that it can be recycled or refurbishing or the dispose of in an environmental friendly manner? So these all things, our life cycle perspective, we need to cover in our environmental management system, and these all things we are also going to cover in our environmental aspect impact analysis. That's why it is mentioned here that you need to consider all these processes. For example, what are the aspects during design and development of my product? what are the aspects when we have the raw material available from them, what are the aspects when we are going to manufacture or going to store our product, what are the aspects, for example, when we are doing the maintenance activities or from our infrastructure. For example, our infrastructure contains the asbestos sheets, so definitely it is going to have negative impact. For example, we have the generator, what you call it, filters, or the filters which are coming out of the machine, they have the hazardous waste, right? If you are using the sand, or you are using the bleaching powder in your products, so these are all your hazardous waste. So what is the impact of these hazardous waste, and how you are going to make them, what will be the end of these, of your hazardous waste? We need to identify all possible aspects from each of our activity and then define their impact. And the third thing is, what will be the control of the organization, right? Because it is our responsibility that we need to bring them within our certain limits. So what will be the control on the organization, we need to see, right? Now we have risk assessment, as you already discussed in our in 14,000. The same thing is applied to our 45,000. So the risk assessment, 90%, I hope 80% of you at least, you have done risk assessment once in your life or once in your company. Most of you are from the safety background. So risk assessment, a hazard is the source, situation or act which can have impact on the, or which can cause harm, right? The hazard is the source, situation or act which can cause harm. Hazard means khatar, right? And risk means makhatir. Risk is the makhatir, that how much is the hazard, definitely it will be impacting on the risk. Our source could be machine, radiation, energy sources, situation, working at height, working at confined space, working with the machinery. Your act, for example, manual lifting, working at height, our actions of, for example, vibration, ergonomic situations are not good. So these are all our hazards. So the hazards will be coming from various sources, or if we are going to see the same thing in safety hazards, for example, these are coming from our activities, these are coming from our processes, and these are coming from the overall services and the products. So what will be the impact? For example, here the impact is our risk. For example, likelihood of an occurrence, how much is the chance, and what is the severity? How much is the chance that this accident is going to be happen, and what is the severity? If it is going to be happen, then what will be the impact? What will be the shidda, severity? Okay, so the same way is aspect impact, the same way is the risk and hazards and risk. So when we are doing the risk assessment, what we need to do, then first thing is identify the hazard, assess the risk, determine the control, and implement the control. There are 5 steps of risk assessment. You can see here how we are going to do the risk assessment. First thing, identify the hazard. Number 2, decide who might be harmed and how our risk can have impact on them. Then evaluate the risk. For example, how much is the risk? If it is medium, if it is minor, if it is higher. So according to our calculation, we are going to recognize it. We are going to determine that how much is the risk, and then record your finding. If the risk is when you are having the controlled risk, it's okay. Whatever the controls you are going to apply, you are going to record it and review your assessment and revise if necessary. Review your assessment means that what do we understand with this point? That our risk assessment is not a one-time job. Our risk assessment, if it is environmental or if it is safety, it is not a one-time job. You are going to use your risk assessment, you are going to use your environmental aspect impact as a live document. So you are going to review it again and again. When are you going to review them? Whenever there is a change in process, whenever there is a change in activity, whenever there is a change in technology, whenever there is a change in manpower, whenever there is a change in the raw material or the machinery, you are going to review them. When we say review, it doesn't mean the revise. Always remember, sometimes we get confused between the review and the revision, right? Review mean after certain frequency, after certain time period, you have to review them. So it might be possible the result of review could be the revision, or the result of review could be you will say no, everything is same, my system is same, my applying control are same, the things are under control, so no need for revision, so it's okay. Similarly, it is also a requirement of document control that sometime you need to apply the review system. When are you going to review your procedure? After some time. So the result of review could be the revision, or it might be possible that you will review and you will say that no need for review, or no need for improvement, we already have a very good controls, we don't have any lacking or the weakness in this system, so this procedure or this risk assessment or this environmental aspect impact is under control, right? Any question?
What about residual risk?
Residual risk is the risk which is going to be left. If you are not going to monitor it, then this residual risk will become the significant. So that's why we need to apply the control, right? Okay.
Sir, what is the abbreviation of HIRA? 5 element of HIRA.
HIRA stands for, or what?
Yeah, what does it stand for? Yeah, HIR.
Hazard identification and risk assessment.
Hazard identification. Okay, good.
Because there are two activities. Always remember, hazard identification and risk assessment. Similarly, environmental aspect, impact and control. There are two different clauses. So that's why there are two different names. But the activity is one. We are covering clause number 6.1. We are covering clause number 8.1 at the same time. Clause 6.1 says identify the aspect, identify the hazards. Clause 8.1 says apply controls, apply your controls for the
aspect, yeah.
Those which have significant impact, those which have the risk, significant risk. So that's why there are two names. Or sometimes we also call it HIRA, right? Like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Anas?
Sometimes companies, they say HERAC, hazard identification, risk assessment and control. Sometimes company says JSA, JHA, right? These are all risk assessment.
Right.
Yes,
Mr. Anas?
Thank you.
For example, if I have done a risk assessment for example, if in my plant, and every year they should for example, shut down the boilers and do maintenance, and every year you should do maintenance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, they should stop boilers or desalination plant to make maintenance. After that, they will restart those equipment. Before make this maintenance, we should make risk assessment.
Of course, because
those
the conditions are going to be changed. So you have to review your risk assessment now. When the conditions are normal, you can leave it as it is. If there is a maintenance requirement, if there is a shutdown requirement, at that time you will make a separate risk assessment, right? And once it is going to be finished and you are going to start again the boiler, again you will do the risk assessment. And once the boiler become normal, so your normal risk assessment will be continued. But at this stage, you should again review. Maybe there are some changes in the process. There are some changes in the system. So if there is a need for update it, you can update it. That's why there is a concept of JHA and JSA. So they say that for the normal operation, we will do our HIRA, for example, hazard identification, risk assessment. But for some specific tasks, for example, how the maintenance activities are going on, we will cover it with the JHA, job safety analysis or job hazard analysis, JSA or JHA. But once the activities again become normalized, we will use our risk assessment.
Yeah. So we make it separately, Mr. Anas, GSA or GHA.
Yes. During the activities, you will make it separate.
So we will.
That's why it is a part of risk. That's why it is a part of permit to work. When you will be doing the permit to work, you will be developing the JHA and JSA.
Yes, I understand, Mr. Anas, but just I'm asking if I have already make a risk assessment, for example, in my plant, and one day they will make a maintenance, so I should use GSA or
Oh, no problem. If your risk assessment already covering the maintenance activities, then no problem. If your risk assessment already covering the shutdown activities, then no problem. Continue with the same thing.
If it's not covering shutdowns activity, I should make a review
Exactly.
on
Yes. You can review in your risk assessment, and for the maintenance people, those who are working on the plant, right? There are two types. One is the plant itself. So this will be covered in your normal risk assessment about the plant abnormal condition. And there is a working of maintenance people who are working on them to cover their activities of maintenance only, how they are going to dismantle, how they are going to clean, how they are going to fix again. So this will be covering as JSA or GHA. But as far as plant performance is concerned, so plant performance, you will cover it with the risk assessment.
And after making GSA, we should put all this data on my risk assessment on my main.
Yes, if you want to put it, you can put it, or otherwise make two files, normal and abnormal situation. So for the normal condition, just operating condition, and the abnormal situation, just make it the other situations which are abnormal.
Yes, good, Mr. Anshu. Thank you.
Okay. So this is one of the scale which you can use for the risk assessment. Sometimes we are also using the same scale for the environmental aspect impact, and sometimes we are using the same scale for the risk assessment. Risk assessment is a very broad study. When we say risk assessment is a very broad study, you can also write one reference. Risk assessment, we use the ISO 31000 standard, right? ISO 31000 standard is for the risk assessment, which gives you the guideline about how to do the risk assessment. So this is the most simplest form. We have seen very complex risk assessment as well. If you go, apart from safety, when you are going towards process safety, you will find the risk assessment which is very complex. Then it also contains FMEA. Then it also contains fishbone analysis. So these are all different kind of risk, and these are all different kind of controls we are going to apply. So to make it simple, when we are working in our companies, 90% or you can say 80% of our activities are covered with our administrative safety. For example, the course you are attending like OSHA, NIBOSH, IOSH, these are all going to provide you the administrative safety requirements. But the process safety is another field. It is entirely a different thing. It is linked with the process. For example, when you are working in Tahliya, you are working in fertilizer plant, you are working in oil and gas. So in this case, you need to apply the process safety, which is more critical, which is focusing more on the process side. So here our standard or what we are going to discuss, we are not going to discuss those complex things. We will be using our very simple formula, which is what is the P, if it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and similarly severity, probability 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, severity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the maximum, 1 is the minimum, and the risk is equal to probability multiplied by severity. So maximum will be the rating 25. If it is like 25, 20 and above, we will say it is a, we need to stop the activities, we need to apply control. If it is between 6 and 15 or 16, we say that, okay, we need to apply the control and we need to monitor. If it is less than 6, which means it is already under control. So this is how we are going to do many of the activities in the risk assessment. When we are going
for the matrix, sorry, for the matrix, if we want to choose 3 by 3 or 5 by 5 or 10 by 10, it depends on what exactly?
It depends on your own understanding. Standard does not give you any guideline for matrix, or any other standard is not going to provide you guideline. They say whatever you are going to have convenient. Sometimes the companies don't choose 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or 5 by 5. They choose ABCD. Right? So it's up to them. Sometimes they are not considering only severity and probability. They are also covering the consequence as a part of their risk calculation. Sometimes companies are also considering the legal requirements as a part of their risk assessment. Sometimes the companies are also considering emergency situation as a part of their risk assessment, risk calculation. So the formula is not being defined by any of the standard, right? They say that you have to choose the formula. So most of the time we are using the formula which is the most simplest. Once you will, inshallah, more mature in the system, you can define your own formula. You will say, I will go for minus 5 and minus 6 rather than 5 and 5. I don't like it. Okay. But the methodology is, the main focus is that you need to identify the hazards, you need to calculate the risk, and you need to apply the control for the risk which are and how we are going to apply the control, how we are going to think. We are going to adopt the same methodology of elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, and your favorite PPE. So elimination is to remove the hazard, if possible to remove the hazard. 70% of the time, the removal of hazard in the companies are not possible. You have to survive or you have to stay with the hazard. So you can apply the substitution, you can apply the engineering control. So our all machine guarding, ventilation system, these are all our engineering control. Our administrative control, for example, signage is posting, training, warning signs, work permit. These are all our administrative control. And the PPE is the, you all know, personal protective equipment, which personal protective equipment are not going to work on the source. Personal protective equipment are only going to protect the people. So our risk assessment, elimination, substitution, we are working on the source. Engineering control, we are working on the source. Administrative control, we are not working on the source, rather we are going to make the source isolated. For example, if you have the generator available, it's better to eliminate the generator, so there is no source of sound, noise. So if you cannot eliminate the generator, then apply the substitution, bring the generator which can produce less noise. If you cannot substitute it, then apply the engineering control, make it maintenance, make it canopy. So the control is the noise is controlled. But if you cannot do elimination, substitution, and engineering control, then keep the generator away from the people, so the people cannot have direct contact with them. The exposure is very less. So this is our administrative control. And at the same time, we need to provide the PPE to the people, so at least those who are going into the area where we have high noise, they can be under control. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Now, the risk assessment, when we apply the risk assessment on an activity, if there is an activity, the risk assessment, it will apply the same as one on environment impact. It will be all the same.
It's not all the same. Environment, you will focus on the environment. When you are doing the risk assessment, you will be focusing on the.
Yes, yeah, I mean.
You can use the same formula, you can use the same format, you can use the same form. But the way you are going to think, it will be different.
It's just the thinking of which subject I'm choosing, but it will be the same formula and
the same thing with the quality also.
Okay.
You know, the most complex risk assessment which I have seen, it is for ISO 27000, information security. They have very complex. I think they also give the formula itself, that what you are going to consider while you are doing the risk assessment. There are 40 types of control which you are going to apply. 40. Here we are not be able to apply 5 controls. There they are considering the 40 controls which you have to apply. Okay, when we are going to see the health hazards which are associated with our when you are doing the risk assessment, so we are going to categorize them: physical, chemical, biological, and psychological, because these are all the requirements of standard. Before the last standard version, it was more focusing on the safety, but as I told you, this version is more focusing on the human. So all the human the hazards which are going to have impact on human, we need to identify and we need to apply the control. So when you are going to identify hazard, it's better that you should identify it as a physical hazard or a chemical hazard or a biological hazard or psychosocial hazard. So for example, your stress is not a physical, chemical, or biological. For example, fatigue, long working hours, these are all our psychosocial hazard. For example, when you have the, what you call it, between racism within the companies, discrimination, gender, bifurcation, these are all our psychosocial hazards which we are going to consider within our organization while we are doing the Yeah, bullying also very good. Shouting by the boss, right? These are all our these kind of hazards which we are going to cover. Yes, guys. Any
Harassment.
question? Any question? Okay. Shall we start the workshop? Yes, guys.
Break?
Can you
Um,
or take the break for 5
Just for
minutes?
10 minutes.
Not 10 minutes. 5 minutes is okay.
5 minutes. We want to finish.
Okay. Now it's 10:10. So 10:15 we will continue, inshallah.
Is the control measure is sufficient and efficient or no? Number 6, reporting of non-conformance, reviewing the non-conformance reports or deviation. Number 7, notify them about the legal requirements. For example, legal requirements about corona, new requirements of corona precautions from modern or SFDA, or new smoking area for in companies or in factories, or Saudization law, like this. Number 8, the needs and expectation and notes of on the control measures or control procedures and resources and efficiency of PPE, or is it comfortable or not comfortable, is it applicable
Very
or
good.
yani,
Very good.
reasonably practicable or no. Number 9, notify them with new they should notify me or EHS department with new activities and the changes in the area, like subcontractors or purchasing new machines or introducing new products, to update our risk assessment. Last point, to ask them about suggestion to improve or continually improve the OHS system in our company.
Excellent, mashallah, very good. You have covered almost all the points which are required by the standard itself. But the thing is, it's very detailed. I mean that in one meeting you cannot cover too many points with the workers. Okay, and when we say worker, it doesn't mean that all of the workers you are going to include. You are going to include the workers' representative, right? Which will be from
Yes.
the workers itself. So this is okay. I mean, very good, very comprehensive document. Yes, guys. Next.
Thank you.
Okay, I will show you one sample as well for the workers meeting. If I find in my forms, I wanted to show you two things. One is the, okay, emergency. Another is the management of change. Another is the legal register. And the last one is the workers participation. So here we go. Can you see my screen now?
Now, yes.
Yes.
Very good. So just quickly, we will review some forms and I will share these forms in the group as well for your reference later on. And you guys who have done the workshop, if possible, you should also share the forms as soon as possible. So maybe you will forget. So these are some of the agenda points. For example, you can write what is the meeting number, date, meeting supervised by EHS department or EHS manager or EHS engineer, and who are the attendees. If you want to make an attendance sheet for this purpose, you can make an attendance sheet for this purpose. These are some of the agenda points as required by the standard as well. HSC policy, legal requirements, for example, Difal Matni, other areas, risk assessment, unsafe acts by the employees, unsafe conditions, understanding accident and near miss reporting, understanding on first aid, fire extinguisher, emergency location, emergency siren and bell, understanding on the information about their first aiders, They should know that who are our first aider, those who are our firefighting team, who are our emergency team, and any other suggestions. So a part which you have developed already, you can also add some of the points which are not added here. So it will be a comprehensive activity as well. Another thing which you can, I wanted to show you is a required by clause by number 8. There is a requirement to have the emergency preparedness and response. This emergency preparedness response, there are 4 requirements which are required by the emergency preparedness and response clause, starting with identification of emergencies, what are your action plans to meet these emergencies, who are the responsible persons, what are the training needed for these responsible persons, what about the awareness of your emergency plan within your organization, and the last thing is to perform these emergencies. Once you are going to perform these emergency drills, then you will get the idea that how is our emergency plan is applicable to the possible emergencies. So this is one of the simple form. For example, when you are going to have an evacuation emergency drill, you can make this kind of checklist to evaluate the efficiency of your drill, right? This is not the drill report. This is only the efficiency of your drill report. That, for example, what is the date, start time, end time, method of announcement, what you have used, for example.
Cannot see, sir. We
Yes.
cannot see you sharing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
It's the meeting agenda points still there.
It's still meeting agenda point. Maafi mushkil.
Yes, shared already.
Now, is it clear?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is our emergency drill record. So you can just put the information, for example, drill date and time, ending time, start time, how the emergency was announced, and then the effectiveness, how we are going to check the effectiveness. For example, announcement was cleared. Was there any effort to stop the accident? Did workers have adequate equipment at the place of accident? Was electricity turned off? Were windows closed? Were evacuation road passable? Did the congestion happen at the exit door? Did the employee arrive at the place of evacuation in acceptable time? You need to decide the time of your evacuation by your own experience. Once you are going to do 2-3 drills, you will know that how much should be the average time, and try to reduce it as much as possible. If you are a small company, then 3 minutes will be, will be good enough. But maybe you have a big company, the covered area is too much, the employees, they have to come from far away places. So in this case, you can increase the time. But in every time, you should try to reduce this time as much as possible. Was the coming to the place assembly point done quiet and without panic? Did employees bring personal belonging? Were authorized services called for help? Was the time of authority arrival was acceptable? Have the authorized person in the organization being notified? Did the employees return to work after termination of emergency? And then, what are the observations? Does the procedure for emergency response need to be reviewed, or is there a corrective action? If we think that the response time is good and everything was perfect, then no need for the review of this procedure, and no need for the changes. If we think that there is some lacking in the procedure or some lacking in the practices, in this case, we need to review and update our procedure. No, you are not required to inform your employees in advance. Otherwise, it will not be a mock drill. It will be announced drill. If you want to make announced drill, in this case, you can inform, but it will not be a useful activity. You can make the awareness that we are having this procedure, this is the requirement of procedure, and we have to follow this procedure, and then make the practice without announcement. Because if you are announced, then they will be well aware of this thing, and we cannot check the response time as accurate as possible. Okay, another record I wanted to show you about the
legal register.
Legal register. Yes. Legal register. But where is it? This legal register. Post. Okay. Legal. Consumer, I miss performance, objective, yes. This is one of the sample for the legal register. Can you see the screen?
Very good
No,
screen.
Mr. Anas.
No?
No, after opening one document, you have to share the opened document. Okay.
Yes, if you can, you should share your screen.
Mr. Anas, could you share please with us all those documents or not?
Yes, this is what I was going to ask.
I will share, but it will cost. The cost is you have to study. You have to, the cost is to
100 real for each document.
La, the cost is not 100 real, it's more than 100 real, that you have to do this activity for your company and then submit to me.
Inshallah.
Okay.
If we will work with the quality management system, Mr. Anas, we will share with you, inshallah.
After 2020.
ندعو لك في رمضان مستر أنس.
Yeah.
Ramadan finish.
We'll take hasanat for every single letter, okay?
Inshallah. Okay, guys, so this is the legal register. You can see this is the identification of law. What are the applicable clauses? What is the activity, right? And what is your action? You can say what is the action of the organization. For example, if you are using some procedure, you are having some work instructions. For example, drinking water, training and qualification, work relations, right? So these are all the requirements of Saudi labor law. But you can see we have considered only 10 requirements. Maybe there are more than 1,000 requirements. But those which are applicable to safety, which are applicable to environment, we are going to take these things, not all. Right? For example, GOSI requirements. What are we doing against the GOSI requirement? Who is the responsible person if we are meeting or not meeting those requirements? This is our legal register. What are the NFPA requirements? Similarly, you have RC requirements. Those who are working with Modern, they have Modern requirements, right? So these are all the chapters, these are all the clauses. And here we have to write our actions, right? In this column, ideally we should write our actions that we are using this by means of procedure, by means of our activity, and who is the responsible person for this activity. So this is a simple template for our legal register.
Mr. Anas, we
Yes.
use this for quality management or safety or environment?
There is no quality. For the quality, the clause is not, there is not a separate clause for the quality legal requirement. But in environment and safety, the clause is a separate clause. So when you will be having audits, the auditor will ask you, okay, please show me the register of your legal requirements. But in quality, he is not going to ask you. Maybe he will ask you about the interested parties' needs and expectations, where you will be covering this point, but not in much detail. For example, you are covering this point in terms of SFDA, you are covering this point as per requirement of any other authority which is responsible, which is going to give you the quality standards or quality legal requirements. But there is no specific requirement in QMS about the legal requirements to establish, right? But in environment 14,000 and 45,000, there is a clause, right? Clause 6 is required. It requires the legal obligation, compliance, legal compliance, right? Now I will show you one more document, which is another very interesting document. I will show you about the MOC, management of change. It is only required in 45,000 standard about the management of change. Remember yesterday we discussed that whenever we are going to change our existing activities, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Whenever you are going to change any of the activity or the process or the technology which can impact on the health and safety of employees. For example, you are going to change the design of machine, you are going to change the design of tank, or you are going to change the design of valve or the energized line. So these are possibly causing too much accident, the conditions which are possibly accidents. For example, if the gas leakage is not one day that the gas is going to be leaked, maybe there will be some maintenance activity which was carried out. Maybe they have done some amendment in the existing lines, and after that the risk assessment was not done properly, or this management of change procedure was not applied properly. So that's why we have many accidents after our maintenance activities. So whenever we are going to perform the change in our existing system, which can affect the health and safety of equipment, machine, processes, we need to go through with this management of change. This management of change will be done by the team, and it will be involving the decision from the top management. So you can see, for example, change to a process. For example, if it is input, activities, output, measurement, resource, information, change to related to external providers, you will just make here check, 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 check. Changes in the communication, develop document information, employee competence, tool and equipment, supplier and management. Who is going to change to review this management of change activity? What is the purpose of change, right? For example, what is the item number, proposed changes, potential consequences, resource required, risk of changes, action plan, target date, responsible person. So these are all things which we are going to write against each change. So sometimes if it is a normal activity, for example, you cannot say that when I'm going to perform the maintenance activity, I will fill this form. No, if you are going to change the set activities, set operations, you are going to change the technology, you are going to change the machinery. This is a part of process safety. Remember, I just told you that when we are working in companies, we are 80% following the administrative health and safety. But this form or this clause is basically focusing on process safety, that we cannot change the design. Sometimes your production manager told that if you want to have more more productivity, we can change some design of our machinery, we can do slight modification. So this slight modification, okay, it can increase the productivity, but at the same time it is a big hazard now, because it might be possible there will be some other hazards due to this activity. So we need to control these kind of activities. We don't say that don't do it, but in a controlled manner. Yes, Ali.
Yes, what if the change is output from the risk assessment? Like in the risk assessment, I decide that we should change our production line.
Right.
Should I make a change?
But how? No, when risk assessment will be done later, once you decide. Before deciding, you are going to fill this form to make the decision making. If we can do it or no, if it is a feasible activity or not a feasible activity. Maybe your maintenance manager or engineering manager will say, if you are going to change the design, there will be a lot of impact on utility, which our plant is not is not be able to produce this kind of energy resources. Maybe you will see that when you are going to improve the productivity, your warehouse cannot bear the load of the material which you are going to produce. It might be possible that the wastewater tanks which you have installed, they are not be able to consume such amount of water. So that's why before the risk assessment is also a part of planning. But risk assessment will be done once we decide, okay, khalas, we need to change now. This is a decision making document. That's why I told you that it will be involving the top management. Yes, guys. Question, please.
Anas, I do not understand this.
No need to understand.
It's not.
Some things you will get understand with the passage of time. I will explain you again. Yes.
When we use it when we should use this form, Mr. Anas.
I will show you the clause. Just give me a minute. Management of change 8.1.3.
1.3 operation.
See, the organization shall establish a process for the implementation and control of planned temporary and permanent changes. Temporary and permanent, both kind of changes that impact health and safety performance, including new products, services and processes. Changes to existing products, services and processes, including workplace location and surrounding, work organization, work condition, equipment, workforce, changes to the legal documentation. So you can see there are many requirements, right? Development in knowledge and technology, changes in the knowledge or information about hazards and risk. So to meet these requirements, we need to have the system available. We will go through with the system whenever we are going to change. It is not like the wish of the production manager or the engineering manager, we will change the design of machinery or we will change the design of anything. not like, it should be done under controlled method, right?
Yes. Mr. Anas,
yes,
I have an example. For example, Ras Al Khair, the Royal Commission, they were really upset when they are doing audit. They are upset because we increased the production and we didn't communicate to them. See, and also there is a change in production. So, and also they were upset when we are doing commissioning instead of using natural gas. We were using a backup diesel. Okay, and there is a lot of emission in this case. They send violation for us, and any change, it should be communicated to the RC and should be documented also.
Exactly.
And if we are doing, for example, testing for the stock, we should inform Royal Commission before at least 15 days. So any change to activity, it should be documented and communicated.
Yes, this is the, for example, now this is the case of external. Even in our internal, when we are going to see that sometimes the gases are going to be leaked, the valve is going to be blasted, the steam lines are going to be bursted. This is not a one day. This has been modified by somehow. Maybe 2 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, you have done slight modification, and after that, this is not going to have, this cannot bear the pressure. So this is going to have accident.
Mr. Anas?
Yes.
Already in the homology plant, we have an extension is a row building. So we need to use this file.
Because, yes. But how if you have already started, now it's late. No need for this.
Not started. It's not.
So before starting, you need to go through with this activity. Definitely. Who is going to make the plan? So definitely you have to go through.
Okay. And in AMS.
And by the way, those who are doing the engineering, those who are making the engineering design, they have already done this activity. That's why it is being passed.
Okay, but I found this clause 8.1.3 in ISO of safety. It's not ISO.
No, that's why I told you it is for the safety, not for the environment. Who told you it is in the environment?
Okay.
Mitigation from one type of ERP to no. Emergency response planning from one document to another. Documents are not necessary to follow the management of change unless they are very critical document. They can be done through your normal document change control procedure, right? Which is the requirement of 7.4 clause, I think. So this we are focusing mostly on the when we are working with the equipment, machinery.
My question was that migration from one type of enterprise resource planning system to another planning system.
Acha. Enterprise resource planning. Yes, in this case you can see again. Remember, risk-based thinking. If you think that if we are not going to apply this, there is a chance of accident, you can use the same form in the quality. There is a chance of business loss, you can use the same form for the environment. There is a chance of any environmental impact, you can use the same form, no problem. This is ideally, this is more precisely discussed in 45,000, but you can apply the same requirement in 9,000, in 14,000 as well. It's up to you. Nobody is going to say, okay, don't use it. This is only for 45,000. In 45,000, it is being discussed like legal requirement. It is not being discussed in for 9,000, but in 45 and 14,000, it is being discussed. But it doesn't mean that you are not going to follow the SFDA requirement if you are a food company or if you are a pharmaceutical company. You still have to follow. You will say, no, it is not mentioned in our standard, so we are not going to follow. It's not the case. Those things which you have to follow as a good practices, you can follow in all standards. Okay. Okay, guys, that's all for now. Inshallah, tomorrow I hope we will have the last day, and if we need to increase some time, if we will not be able to finish tomorrow, by 11 o'clock, we can have additionally more time, like minimum keep the margin of 1 hour or more than 1 hour, right? Because we need to discuss all internal audit. I know many of you have already done the lead auditor courses, and some of you are already involved in the internal audit process. But as we discussed initially, that many of the people, when we see that they are struggling with the implementation, So we need to, that's why in the course I have changed my methodology, and we were more focusing on the implement. And even for me, it's also, mashallah, it's a very good experience. It gives me that, you know, the idea that I have to spend more time in making the documentation to be used for the reference. Before, we were doing this course in the companies as a in-house course, but it was not in much detail, right? So mashallah, and you guys, all of you, mashallah, you are taking good interest, you are involved in the activities. So this is the main energy for the trainer. When the participants are going to show their energy, the trainer is going to have the energy. But if you are not be able to show your energy, your interest, then the trainer will go, you know, very fast. So I hope we will have, inshallah, good understanding of the standards, and some of the requirements we will be discussing tomorrow as well, how to integrate our system. And then just after that, we will start our internal audit activities. Okay. Thank you so much.
So we will take 1 hour more, Mr. Anas, tomorrow?
Yeah, keep the margin. I will try to finish as soon as possible, but keep the margin.
Okay.
Mr. Anas, just please don't forget to send us those forms.
Inshallah, don't worry. I'm going to send now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are all welcome.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Good night.